Yes. So coming up on April 28th through 30th, we'll be taking a group of members to DC to meet with members of Congress on Great Lakes priorities and business priorities. And I know a few people on this call have already expressed interest, but we are starting to finalize our list. So if you were interested and you did not yet respond to the confirmation email that we sent last week, please reach out. And also, if you have not expressed interest but are interested, please reach out because we are getting close to our max capacity and might be moving to a wait list. But really excited. It'll be a great opportunity to get to know other members. And I know a few people are not able to attend this year because of the timing. So we'll definitely do this event again and we'll keep you in mind for future events.
And we were also just, well, Lisa and Marta and Jason from Patagonia were also just in DC for the Healing Our Waters fly-in. So we'll do, Lisa, you want to provide a little recap of that? And then Marta, if you want to share anything as well, please feel free.
Sure. I think I had lumped this in with my issue update, but yes, last week we attended the Healing Our Waters Coalition fly-in, which is a really strong partner coalition that we're a part of, brings together a lot of the Great Lakes environmental groups, sort of across different issue areas and focus areas to unite under the umbrella of Great Lakes Restoration. So I think there are around 60 participants from the 8 Great Lakes states region. And GLBN was really proud to have 2 members join us in DC for meetings with congressional members from Illinois and Michigan. And collectively, I think we met with more than 20 offices, focusing really on the shared priorities that the HOW Coalition identified. So really the meetings focus on the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative and the important federal funding investments for Great Lakes protection, as well as, really pushing Congress to do what they can to work towards a solution to a lot of the federal funding freezes that has really prevented agencies from carrying out the key programs that are funded by the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. So first, pushing for that federal funding allocation this year at the full level, but then also urging Congress to really protect the jobs and agencies that carry out the work on the ground. So there's a lot of storytelling that occurred, a lot of, there's so many issues being impacted by the federal funding freezes, from invasive species programs to, like environmental justice work. It's really widespread. And stream restoration projects, things like that. So it was really great to have on the ground advocates really communicating the impacts directly. And I think it was a well-received message. And I'll let Marta jump in if she has any feedback.
Hello. Um, I just had the most amazing time in DC with everyone, and it was just like drinking from a fire hose of knowledge and hearing so many different people's passions and the works that have been going on for generations, and really powerful to get time in front of the specific reps for the places where I have businesses and to talk about the macro topic, but even as specifically as like dams in Manistee County, that if those aren't maintained, that our business could go under because we need the economy related to those. I was so grateful for the opportunity, and I'm so looking forward to going back again, advocating more on the business perspective. But everyone, at least everyone in the groups that I was in, I was the only small business owner in there, and they really like shared how important it was for the business story to be told alongside all of the topics that Lisa just mentioned.
Yeah, I'm excited you're able to make it once and go in again. So it'll be a great time. At this time, Beth, I wanted to pass it over to you to talk a little bit about the community building survey. We have officially launched that.
Yeah, it's super simple, and I hope folks will have interest in the 2 committees we're developing. We had some really great feedback from our executive committee as we walked through our budgeting for this last year and look forward to our budgeting into this next year. We do hope to gain a little bit more engagement and feedback from membership on the events that we're participating in and different ways that we can build fundraising and engagement from our memberships. So those are the two main committees we're hoping to gain interest around. And then scattered within the survey that just went out is some additional questions around preference for meeting times and locations and just other communications logistics. So it would be great to have all of you fill that out, even if you would like to pass on one of the committees. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Beth, for leading on that. Thank you to our EC members for feedback. We're excited to get those up and rolling. So at this time, we'll transition to different issue area related updates. So I'll start off with clean energy. As you can suspect, there's a lot happening in the clean energy space and a lot of, frankly, attacks on clean energy that are happening. So just want to provide a high level overview of what that looks like. And we know this week a really pressing issue is budget reconciliation and the impact that might have on the Inflation Reduction Act. If you're familiar, both chambers, so the House and Senate, have to agree on a common budget and then move forward with the reconciliation and of course get that approved by the president. So Friday is the time that they need to have agreed upon by a common budget. And, we just don't know what that's going to look like. It's certainly not going to be a budget that at this point seems friendly to clean energy. And so we're definitely keeping the pressure on Congress to withhold or support any IRA funds that are in the budget. We know that the IRA is funding and supporting domestic energy security. It's reducing energy cost. It's diversifying our energy resources, paying well-paying jobs, supporting union jobs, lots of things that I actually just talked to Forrest here about. So certainly hoping to see as much of that preserved in the budget reconciliation as possible. Another item on the agenda is congressional reviews. So a congressional review can take place up to 60 days after a bill is passed by a previous I'll restate that. If a previous administration introduces a bill 60 days prior to the end of that leadership, that bill can be reviewed by the next administration. So there were several energy laws that were passed. For example, methane pollution standards were updated in those last few months. We know that the methane rule would have had certain fees implemented on oil and gas facilities for wasteful emissions. The methane rule alone would have resulted in emissions reductions equivalent to taking nearly 8 million gas-powered cars off the road and had a cumulative $2 billion impact, positive impact for our economy. So we saw this be reviewed through the CRA process. It's passed both the House and Senate, unfortunately. And is likely going to be signed by President Trump. So that would overrule the successful completion of that bill, which happened under the Biden administration. So we're keeping an eye on those CRAs and is doing as much as we can to lift them up and, put sand in the gears, slow it down where we can, anything like that. So we'll keep an eye on that. I have a tracker for those CRAs if it's of interest. And I'll put that in the chat here. It's a little text heavy and wonky, but I think it could be helpful if you're curious. The other thing that I'll share is a Project 2025 tracker. So far we've seen 37 direct acts on environmental initiatives completed under that Project 2025 initiative. I think you can track a lot of things with this tracker, so that might be insightful related to your business. Let me put that in the chat there. And then the other thing that we saw happen in the last few weeks was the declaration of a national energy emergency, which was meant to boost our fossil fuel infrastructure and promote the production of energy domestically, but it left wind and solar out of that definition of energy. So of course that's of concern. And I think Beth can speak to the fact that it does certainly have impacts on pipelines here, especially Line 5, which she may go into that in her section later. But we know that this inevitably is going to increase more pollution in our air and water, and it gives more power to the executive branch to expand oil and gas drilling and pipeline development, things like that. So certainly concerned about those, and our team has really been tracking that and what it means, especially for Line 5. And lastly, I'll provide here a summary of the different executive orders that we've seen passed. So in week 1, we saw 78 different executive orders that threatened clean energy and clean climate directly. We saw that pause on the IRA funds. And of course, a lot of these are being litigated in court, doing our best to keep track of those impacts. And there's a business impact tracker that I'll drop as well. So for example, it's tracking what's happening with REAP, which is the Rural Energy for America program that businesses could access to install energy efficiency, different appliances, solar, geothermal, things like that. So doing our best to get those resources out to you. We can certainly provide additional details and meeting minutes on those as well. Yeah, I know that was a bit, but please let me know if there's anything more you'd like, and I'll just keep putting those links in the chat since it's hard to talk and do that at the same time.
Any questions on the clean energy pieces? Okay. I'll jump into restoration. So just a quick overview of restoration, the restoration campaign, in case you're not familiar, it's sort of our umbrella term for all of the issues that fall under Great Lakes protection or restoration in terms of supporting the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, which we already talked about, the largest federal investment in the Great Lakes, as well as our work ad hoc on invasive species, harmful algal blooms, and our newest issue edition, microplastics. So I covered a little bit of this. I'll try to keep it high level, and we can open it up for questions if anyone has any. Once again, the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative is up for reauthorization. So this is the federal investment in the Great Lakes. It's one of the most bipartisan policy pieces that moves, and it is reauthorized on a 5-year basis. So the funding is reauthorized every 5 years, and then every year Congress appropriates the actual money to be dispersed to the agencies on an annual basis. So the GLRI Act of 2025 has been introduced in both the House and the Senate, and GLBN joined a large coalition of Great Lakes groups endorsing the legislation. So we're very supportive. And we even had a member featured in one of the congressional press releases, which was really great. So I will drop the link to that in the chat. But overall, it's moving. We do expect there to be some challenges, and this will be a piece that we continue to advocate for at our fly-in April and in any follow-up with congressional offices. Just recognizing that it's a difficult policy landscape to get any kind of funding passed. So we're hopeful, but it might be an uphill battle. So just being aware that we might be leaning on some businesses to do some additional advocacy and follow-up. Overall, we're continuing to speak out against some of the cuts to federal investments to key agencies. I mentioned this earlier, but a lot of the Great Lakes programming relies on federal funding that has been frozen, and we're seeing layoffs at a lot of our partner agencies. So doing what we can to try to lift up the importance of the work that they're doing, and again, making that connection to the Great Lakes economy that really relies on clean water. And we did sign on to a couple of letters. I'll drop one in the chat specifically supporting NOAA and the work that they're doing in the Great Lakes region, trying to sort of just bring another business voice to support those key programs. I already talked about Great Lakes Days with the Healing Our Waters Coalition and our GLBN fly-in, but if you have any questions about either of those events or would like to learn more so you could consider them for next year, please reach out. I'm always happy to chat. And we can always connect you to a member who has participated if that's something you're interested in, getting that peer-to-peer perspective. And lastly, we're launching a student collaboration with a team of master's students from University of Michigan SEAS, the School for Environment and Sustainability. And we'll have a team of 4 to 5 students working on building out a stronger policy platform for microplastics. So these students are really excited and energized to work with businesses to identify any actions that you've taken at your business to help reduce your reliance on single-use plastic, to build out sort of a two-part project looking at individual business actions and then some of the strategies that can be implemented at the larger policy or systems level. So I'm really just teeing this up that we'll have an opportunity for businesses to meet with the student team. They're doing a series of interviews with GLBN members and additional businesses. So if this is something that is exciting to you, or if you have a connection to working with plastics or reducing plastic reliance at your business, we would love to hear from you, and we'll add you to our list for outreach. But we might be tapping into some of you even if you don't volunteer. So just a heads up there, and thank you so much. And I'm happy to take any questions on the restoration piece.
All right, pending no questions, pass it over to Beth.
Thanks. Okay, I'm gonna go through line 5 and I hope to make this pretty quick so we can go right to questions overall. So on line 5, the last few months have been, as expected, really fast on the legal front. We've had some really great decisions and then some frustrating decisions that I just want to cover. First and foremost, we had a great win in the last week in Wisconsin, where the groups working to oppose an issued permit got a stay on the permit as it moves through the court, which is really hard to obtain a stay. And it prevents Enbridge from moving any construction forward, which is really great. So some of the Wisconsin permits are successfully moving through the challenge phase, but there's still a pending U.S. Army Corps of Engineers EA that we're expecting sometime this summer. So that's on the reroute for Enbridge's line 5. And just to catch people up, if you're not familiar with line 5, this is a 72-year-old pipeline that is operating illegally in 2 locations, first on the Bad River Bands Reservation in Wisconsin, as well as in the Straits of Mackinac in Michigan. They've been in active trespass on the Bad River Bands Reservation for 10 years. And the band is trying to have a federal judge remove line 5, which is actually court ordered for June of 2026. So there is an active court order that's being challenged by Enbridge that does actually require a shutdown. And so Enbridge is trying to push through a bunch of these alternatives to keep line 5 operating. And as I'm talking about some of these permits, that's what I'm referring to as the effort to try to check the project and make sure that it's like Enbridge is not messing with the permits or mixing up the permits, but also to oppose them ultimately. So the Bad River Band reroute is basically on hold until the permits are reviewed by a judge. And then just an update on the case there, that is pending decision on appeal. So at any moment, we might hear about the overall case to remove the existing pipeline in Wisconsin. And then jumping over to Michigan, this last month, the state of Michigan started back up in state court in their effort to try to get the easement revocation advanced so that Enbridge has to shut down in the Straits of Mackinac. And really great oral arguments. We are still waiting for a decision from the state judge, Judge Jamo. And then next week, just sticking with the legal lane, there's a whole nother case on the federal side where Enbridge sued the state of Michigan, arguing that federal laws preempt their ability to shut down a pipeline, that because of the Pipes Act and other laws, the state of Michigan doesn't have the authority to shut down a pipeline. That's what Enbridge is arguing. And so that advances in federal court next week with oral arguments and briefing before a new judge. So more to come on those pieces, but just a quick update on the legal side of things. And then one more piece on some of the Michigan permitting for the tunnel, which is Enbridge's proposed alternative for the Straits of Mackinac crossing, which is also in violation and operating illegally. So the Public Service Commission issued a permit last year, which was legally challenged by several groups. And in that appeal, the appeals court upheld the decision that the permit is valid. And so now it is moving to the Michigan Supreme Court in the appeals process. And we haven't heard from the appellates who are like Earth Justice or the tribes, ELPC, etc. And groundwork among the appellates, Zoe, formally?
I cannot confidently answer that.
Okay, I wasn't sure if they were in their ELPC case, but that is moving to appeal. We don't have a great feeling about it, but we have good news on the Eagle permits, which in the last week, Enbridge has been required because of failures to properly evaluate impact on their original permits. They're required to refile permits. So basically their old permits were voided out and they have to start over again. They submitted those last week, and we have quite a bit of confidence that the permit applications are going to be deemed incomplete. That is what we're advocating for, because Enbridge has yet to seek a bottomlands permit, which they absolutely will have impacts to the bottomlands, which are held in public trust. They are required to get a permit for that. And it seems sets really dangerous precedent for corporations that could potentially try to come in and have really devastating projects without having to get critical permits. So we are challenging Eagle on this front, and we'll have some action alerts coming out probably in the next week or two that really push a note to Eagle right now, and Director Phil Roos saying that they need to have more complete permitting that looks at full risk and whether we even need the pipeline or not. So more to come on that. And then I wanted to touch back on something that Zoe had mentioned. Under the Trump administration, he has issued an emergency declaration of emergency on energy. And as a part of that, there was a list created by the Army Corps of Engineers that was going to be like expedited projects that were just going to basically be rubber stamped at some level to move. When that list was originally made public, Line 5 tunnel was on it. Currently, the permitting is supposed to be a full EIS with comment period and edits, and then additional comment periods and hearings, which is about a 2-year process. If that's rubber stamped, there will be absolutely no agency looking at the construction of this project, or no agency looking at the environmental risk of this project. The good news is that that list has somehow disappeared after a bunch of advocacy in DC. We actually had a fly-in the week after it was made public. The list is gone. We don't know where it went, and we don't fully understand where Army Corps may be heading with this, but they did confirm at a meeting last week that their intent, at least at a local level in the Detroit office, which manages this, to require full permitting. So we're hopeful that that will be the case. But as you all know, there is a very wild trade war happening. At the heart of the trade war is oil and gas and electricity and all kinds of other resources. We have a really strong case showing that Line 5 really is a thoroughfare pipeline. It just moves product to Canada. And so in the craziest of worlds, this actually makes sense. It makes a lot of sense to decommission Line 5 and move towards a more reliable US sources, given the trade war. And so we have put together a memo that we've delivered to folks that are working within the administration and Congress to outline why an orderly shutdown is a more appropriate response, especially given what is happening right now. So happy to share that over, but we will also have a more formal report coming very soon from some experts called PLG Consultant. and they're creating a report for our organization, the Great Lakes Business Network, to shop around to members of Congress at our fly-in, which will talk about how an orderly shutdown is very viable and doable. And then, sorry, real quick, a couple more things. World record. We have a couple action opportunities. We'll put an email. We're making origami fish to deliver to both governors in Michigan and Wisconsin. The world record is 18,000 origami fish. And the hope is to show that there's huge support for protecting the Great Lakes. And so we will share a toolkit on how to make the origami fish and how to have perhaps a making station and storefronts if you're interested. So more to come on that. And then I will also share an email. We're fundraising for a bunch of the stuff. Some of the Eagle permittings might require legal challenges. We're also fundraising for the PLG report. So I'll share over a fundraising ask. We do have a very, very kind donor that is willing to do a $25,000 match. And so that's what we're aiming for. And I'll put all that in our follow-up. So thanks so much. Appreciate it. Happy to take any questions.
Lauren, I'll just bump up your question in the chat. She was asking if Beth, you'd be able to share over that memo.
Yeah, the one that we have right now is more in a confidential stage, but we can absolutely take a few things out and share that over and get like the framing too, because it's great framing.
And for the fish making, I will probably be making some fish at our Earth Day event in Marquette. I kind of want to encourage folks to also write on their fish a little love letter to the Great Lakes or a little note about shutting down the pipeline. So it's very obvious what they're about. That wraps our agenda for today. So just want to leave some space if there's any events happening in your communities that you want to lift up, any impacts that you're noticing that you want to share. Just take some time for that.